You're just so motivating. I love you. Hey, everybody, we are live. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Women of Color in Retail, my leadership journey. And we are here today with Shawn Grain Carter. So thank you for joining us. And look, we've got a lot to talk about. Many of you have already met Shawn, and you kept asking me to bring her back. Please bring her back. And we were talking about the Christmas event and how they learned so much. Like, people had their pens out and they were writing, and I was like, great, I'll talk to her. And they're like, well, you don't talk too long. Just bring her on and let her talk about who she is and give us this leadership. You know, we're at a point where there's a lot of lip service, right, Shawn, about how everybody knows now, women of color, especially Black women, are at the bottom of everybody's thought, right? They think about everybody else before they think about us. And when you think of gender parity and all the opportunities that are out there, we just aren't really thought of. And so recently, there has been, a few people are being noted, and you see it on LinkedIn. But the reality of what we're still dealing with is that not much has changed. And what I just get so much positivity and such great ideas when I talk to you, every time I talk to you. And you did it before so many of us did it. You did it with even less support than we have now. And so your journey, your perspective is so necessary and important. So I don't want to talk a lot. I really want to just jump in and say, hey, Shawn, tell us how you got here. Like, even now with your title and with executive, you do this luxury consulting and you write curriculum. You just shared something with me that's so super exciting about curriculum finally. And maybe we just start there. Is it possible? Can you share that? Can you tell everyone? This is so exciting, ladies. I'm going to just step back. Shawn, take it away.
Well, we know as Black women, nothing is ever easy for us. And I think of Shirley Chisholm, who coined the phrase unbought and unbossed. Black women have always had to be their own boss, in spite of how others want to define us and put us in a box. And so one of the lessons that I've learned the hard way, because it's not always easy when you don't have support, you don't have consensus, you don't have people who want to affirm you. And so self-affirmation is important in terms of leadership, particularly for Black women, because we are often the ones they want to silence, whether it's in a meeting, a neighborhood, a conversation, or when it comes to difficult analyses about promotions or participation or organization. And one of the things that I felt was important that we have at FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology, is curriculum that's not just diverse, but that speaks to achievements of Black women, Indigenous women, Native American women, Latinas. We need to move beyond this Eurocentric, ethnocentric, myopic point of view that if it's not white, it's not right. So in terms of creating a minor in African American and Africana studies, I decided to just do it, meaning that I did the research and I knew the only way to get it passed was to get buy-in from students. And that was the easiest part. The hardest part is going through curriculum committees, department committees, school-wide committees, getting the blessing of the Board of Trustees, the blessing of the president, the blessing of the VP of Academic Affairs, and all the bureaucracy that it takes just to deliver great curriculum that incorporates the accomplishments of Black creatives, Black designers. One of the things that was interesting is I was having a conversation with my students and I said, did you know that Mary Todd Lincoln will address to the inauguration by a Black woman named Elizabeth Keckley, who designed her gown? Did you know that Jackie Kennedy's wedding dress was designed by a Black woman named Anne Lowe? And they're not just seamstresses, they're creating businesses. So, number one, they're entrepreneurs, they are designers, they have skills, they are artisans. And these skills were passed down to other generations, as well as the know how, as well as the entrepreneurial business acumen that they act as if Black women don't possess. Well, we do. And we have to
We
get
do.
things done, usually in innovative and different ways than the traditional trajectory of white women, our counterparts. And there's value in allies. So I have white allies, but what I've learned is that my Black sisters in the book club, my Black sisters in the women's group, my Black sisters in the sorority, in church, in whatever nexus of affiliate groups and organizations that are out there, always have my back, whether things are going well in a career or things are challenging. And, people are difficult in fashion. This business
Oh
is
my God.
not the faint of heart. It's rough and tumble. And in many instances, it's really more difficult than Wall Street. If you've been baptized in fashion, in retail buying, in merchandising, in sales management, in dealing with nasty, ridiculous customers, in dealing with VPs and sales managers that yell and scream and pretend that they're so professional, you are
Right.
cut and ready to deal with any challenge, whether it's Donald Trump, Putin, or your local state officials telling you, no, we won't let you run for the Board of Education.
Yeah.
We
I
are
mean,
out
people don't
there
realize. Yeah.
and we mobilize. And guess who got Joe Biden and Kamala Harris elected? My Sora, I will say, Black women.
Black women.
When he was on a political respirator, we resurrected him like Lazarus in the Bible. So, what I'm saying to anyone listening is when someone tells you no, no means not now. One thing that Kamala Harris said to some children in a Jack and Jill phone call, she said, I eat no for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. And what I'm here to say is, I've been eating no since I was born. When I learned how to say the word at 2 years old, no, I realized that that was a very powerful word for a little Black girl to have, because it didn't just give me agency in terms of me able to articulate something that might be disagreeable. It empowered me to move beyond Nancy Reagan's just say no campaign. When I don't want to take on a project at work, I'm empowered to say no. And I'm also empowered to say yes and make requests, even when people think I'm not qualified, because all of us have the capability to learn. We all have the capability to figure it out and to have people assist us in that endeavor. I think it's interesting when lesser qualified people are promoted or given the affirmation to accomplish a project or goal. We allow them to fail frequently. But when it's a woman
Yes.
of color and a Black woman in particular, you get one shot at your gross margin analysis. You get one shot at making sure you don't have too many markdowns. You get one shot at making certain that you have set up a team that will be productive and efficient and innovative. And that's not fair. But we already know the game is rigged. And so what we need to do, what I've done over the years, is call on other Black women, quite frankly, in other luxury brands or retail stores and say, I don't know how to deal with this. I'm ready to quit, or I'm frustrated, or I'm ready to strangle my boss. What are some of the tips that you have to share so I can keep my sanity? I think of a woman who, passed away a couple of years ago. Her name was Gloria Hartley. She was the first Black buyer at Bloomingdale's. And I thought
Wow.
this woman was nuts. But I have to tell you, I learned from her and how tough she was with her vendors and unafraid and unbossed. When the chairman at the time said to her, he was not pleased with her sportswear business. She said, well, I'm not pleased with your attitude. And I'm not pleased with the fact that you're not giving me enough open to buy to maximize my sales. So you want more revenue? Give me more money to make it happen.
Did she get it?
Yes, she got it, because he said, if you were bold enough and brassy enough to ask for more money, well, then guess what? You better deliver the results. And she quadrupled her sales that quarter. And what it taught me was, we can't be afraid to ask. We are very afraid to ask because we fear rejection. Rejection and a no just means not now, or we don't like that idea. Sometimes it means we don't like you, but you know what? This is not a popularity contest. And so let me start by saying my leadership lesson is, you don't lead for popularity. You lead for smart business decisions, making that bottom line profit, and also empowering yourself to know that leadership requires sometimes you to walk that road by yourself, but to know that you're walking the road equipped with what you need to get to your destination. That's a difficult leadership lesson, but it's important, because there will always be naysayers, doubters, and haters telling you why you can't, why you shouldn't, and why you're not qualified. And what I'm here to tell anyone listening is that you are enough. You are powerful and smart enough to do whatever it takes, because what you don't know, you surround yourself with people who do, who will help you find the answer.
But so many times, Shawn, and I think you're making such incredible points, and I'm trying to keep notes for everybody because I'm sure they're listening. What if you're in this situation where, and this has been a few times, where I've been told, you need to make more people, bring more people in. You need to bring more people in. People need to like you. They need to, be friendly.
I hear that.
And I'm like, but I'm delivering on what I was hired to do. I'm delivering.
Right. This is the trap. Oh, right. I'm so familiar with this, because when you deliver the gross margin results or you make your sales revenue, they say, we need you to be more of a team player. Now, this is a public setting, so I will not curse like I would if I was in my office. But I'm here to tell you that's a bunch of poppycock, but you got to know how to work around it. Okay. Whenever you deliver results, that's what you're paid to do. But teamwork and cooperation and making sure that people like you is part and parcel to how you get promoted and advancement. But you have to decide if that's what you want. If you want it bad enough, you have to cultivate mentors and allies that will lobby for you. And that's more challenging, really, than earning a profit. Right. Most Blacks, and that's for men too, but particularly for women, we don't have those allies who lobby on our behalf. So one of the things that I learned late, and it was from a gay white male executive VP who I felt was very hard on me, but he pulled me aside one day and said something that really resonated with me, and I'm going to share it with you. He said, Shawn, you're going to always have it tougher than any other white girl. He said, and they're going to second guess you just because they see you. So what I'm here to tell you is, it's not just excellence that's going to get you promoted, because people make mistakes, but you have to come to me with your mistakes so I can lobby on your behalf. He said, I didn't know you wanted to be a buyer because you never asked for the job. He said, I didn't know you wanted to be an associate buyer because you never said to me, what are next steps? He said, every other assistant is in my office with their bragging rights, but you just quietly do your work. Well, that's the first mistake. I need to know what your aspirations are. And if you don't tell me, I'm not going to jump inside your head and try to guess. White people with less talent are in my office telling me that they're so good and so great, and how are they going to get to the next level? We have to speak up and ask and say, I want to know, how long will it take for me to go from department manager to regional manager? What are the steps? When can we sit down and map out a plan and a strategy? And they might say, well, you need to work on your teamwork skills. We want to see you have improvement in how you discipline. We want to see that you are able to go to a meeting and present. We want to see that you can do X, Y, Z. So then you have them partner with you, even if you can't stand them.
Mm.
That's if there's value in that partnership. Now, for this gay guy who was my executive VP, I really didn't think he was that smart. But what I observed about him, he was the best ass kisser I ever observed in my life. He kissed so many asses that when they fired the CEO, the person who was promoted him because ass kissing. Now, I'm not into being a hemorrhoid. I'm just going to tell you that right up front.
Right.
But what I learned from him was I wanted a different buying position, so he made that happen. But I wasn't willing to kiss his ass to become a divisional at that particular company. So my ass kissing, I tabled that because I just didn't want that responsibility. I had just had my daughter. And as a result, I remained a buyer. Mm-hmm. I plateaued at that particular company as a buyer, but then I went to their competitor and they brought me in as a director and a VP. So I made the choice to plateau because I knew I was going to have to kiss so many more asses and I wasn't interested. Just give me my money, my little bonus. Let me get my clothing discount and go home at, a decent hour to be with my family. But you've got to recognize how this game is played. It is, are you going to go and have dinner with the vendor, even though you don't feel like being bothered? Mm-hmm. That's where decisions are made. Most of the vendors knew who was being fired before I ever did, at every level, which I found fascinating because they act like everyone's a competitor. But the CEOs, the merchants, the VP of merchandising, the fashion VP, they're all talking to the vendors who will say, well, Shawn, she's okay. But now Sarah, that's a buyer. Mm. And that is informal information that's being digested by senior management at your particular company, whether you're on the wholesale side, the manufacturing side, the marketing side, the merchandising, stylist side. People talk. And so reputations are developed. And so that's why, try not to burn your bridges, even when you find these people distasteful, obnoxious, and absolutely crazy. And figure out those allies that you think will work with you to promote your interests. You might not always like them, but if they think you're someone that they want to sit with Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., or have lunch or dinner with you when it comes to business, or travel with you when you've got to go to London or Paris, that's where these deals are made. It's really not in seeing, did you accomplish these objectives that HR reviews and says, okay, you hit this goal.
Right.
And that's not something that we're as comfortable with because we don't grow up discussing this kind of stuff at the dinner table. But decisions are frankly made on likability, which sucks, quite frankly. It's not based on meritocracy. It's based on, do I like you enough to want to talk about what happened in the March Madness conference with the road to the Final Four? I mean, I love March Madness, but I'm not interested in talking to you about that right now. I'm looking at my March comps and figuring out how I'm going to hit my second quarter. But this is the kind of conversation that will decide, do they want to promote you? Mm-hmm. Because you're talking about the stupid Super Bowl. You're talking about something so nebulous. But these conversations are important to senior management because it tells them that, we could take her anywhere. And we can have breakfast, lunch, or dinner with her, with a client, with a vendor, with a competitor, or at a conference, in a hotel, whether we're in China, whether we're in Europe, whether we got to go to California. And we know that she will represent us in a way that's palatable. And so nurturing these kinds of relationships requires a bit of business savvy, but what I call Black girl magic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna tell you something. Right now, the Black Girl Magic is popping, but a lot of it's PR BS. So I say seize this moment to get your white allies who are all feeling guilty and have them mentor you to the next level. But use them like they're using you. They're going to use you for diversity and inclusion and equity because that's the whole rage right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to use them to advance your own goals that you want to accomplish and grab some allies along the way because half of these people leave these companies and go to the next gig, and often they'll bring in talent with them in partnerships to advance the people that they liked from the last organization. Now,
How do you start that
it's
conversation?
hard, but it happens.
So, Shawn, give us some very clear steps or tips on how do you start that conversation?
Okay. So, one of the things that I suggest is doing an action plan for your development, a 6-month and a 12-month action plan. And what you might want to consider doing, which I think is something I advise my, young people to do. And when I say young, it's all relative. I just turned 60. So young to me is anybody under 60.
Well, you're young.
You have a plan that you sit down with your immediate supervisor and say, look, I just would like for us over Starbucks coffee or, whatever. Can we sit down and talk about my goals? Because I like what I'm doing, but I have bigger aspirations. White people love that word aspiration because then they feel like they are doing something for you when they're not. But that word is so powerful when you say aspiration because most white people like the idea that they can further their own goals. And if they think that they're helping you as a Black woman, well, they're doing you a favor. So let them. Aspiration. You sit down with your action plan and you talk about your aspirations. Then, one of the second things I suggest is at least once a month, as difficult as it might be, bring your boss a bagel and coffee once a month or even every other month. Think about it. It's a $5 investment that you know what? They feel like you care about them, even when you don't. This is what these people do every now and then. Because one of the things that I learned as I got older is that, even these people who are so stupid are under pressure. And so if they feel like you have their back, even though they know they're assholes, they will be more inclined to support you and be loyal during a difficult moment because you're seeing them as human and not just as your boss or supervisor. And every now and then, just bringing someone a bagel and a coffee, that's a cheap investment to further your own personal and career goals. Cheap investment. And the reason why I say do it, once a month or every few months, because you do it when it's unexpected. And then it shows that you're invested in the relationship, the job relationship. And let's face it, in fashion and retailing, it's about relationships, cultivating these relationships who will advance your career goals. Now, the third thing that I think is important, I think it's important to join affinity groups so that you can always have current knowledge on what's happening in the broader industry sector. We get caught up in our silos of what we're doing on our job, and we're not necessarily networking with people who could advance us from these affinity groups and other opportunities. I think that's terribly important to also realize that advancement might mean relocating from the zip code where you currently are. Because today everything is global, but it's also domestically different in terms of where opportunities lie. We used to just look at LA, Boston, Atlanta, New York, and Dallas, and that was it. Well, that's all a game changer now that Amazon is playing in the mix. Alibaba's playing in the mix. And guess where the rapid growth is happening? You got Target, you got Alibaba, you got Stitch Fix, even though their CEO just stepped down, but that's another conversation. But my point is, they're not located in New York. Not one of these companies I just named is located in New York City, where, yes, there's a lot of action there, and we know that that's fashion capital of America, but that's not where the growth is occurring. Frankly, if you're going to go to New York, you got to be in Brooklyn. That's where the action's happening with fashion. So what I'm saying is open your mind up to allowing yourself to go where the opportunities are, even if you don't think that that's a zip code you'd want to be in. You don't have to stay there forever. But if you think it'll advance your career, I suggest you consider that. The next thing is talk to your peers. They hear office gossip and things that are going on that you might not be aware of. That, what they used to call the water cooler gossip, is still important. And your peers have information. Sometimes, you probably think that they don't know anything. And because of their mediocrity in terms of their performance, you probably think that they really don't have the inside grapevine information, but they do. So you don't have to spill the tea with them, but listen and share just a little nugget so that you know what's going on in the pipeline. Secretaries know when it comes to the higher up you go, the secretaries know who's getting fired, who's getting hired, who's in trouble. And your peer group can also hear information, just like the vendors that I mentioned before. So having your ear to the ground is critically important. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think it's terribly important that we always treat people with professionalism and kindness, whether it's the stock guy, person in the cafeteria, the security guard, secretary. They know stuff. And so it behooves you not to, not burn your bridges with the people who might be able to help you without you realizing it. And lastly, be excellent. Know your business. Go above and beyond, so that not that you're proving something to the company, but you're proving to yourself that you got this. You know it. You know it inside out. And therefore, you're already preparing yourself for the next level, because you want to do what's best, because you want to grow, not just in your business, but also as an individual, and grow as a leader, because we all make mistakes. And figuring out how to bounce back from these mistakes, to be resilient, is part of leadership, part of growth, and part of being a fashion executive. It's impossible not to make an error. It's impossible not to make a mistake. But what we tend to do when we make a mistake is we think that we're ruined, because oftentimes that's how the company wants to make you feel. They want to invalidate you as if everyone rose to the ranks of CEO and chief merchandising officer from total perfection. It's failing forward. If I can't give you any other lesson besides, networking and mentoring and cultivating allies, it is failing forward and bouncing back. That is really how you develop expertise, and not just what you're doing in your career, but in life. We all have failures, and you've got to fail forward. You've got to use these obstacles, turn them into stepping stones so that you can move forward. And that's where you rely on your sister girls. You rely on your Black magic. You rely on the comfort of networking with other Black women, and then your white allies who have your back, but your Black sisters, your Latina sisters who say, I know my boss is also an idiot, but this is the strategy I'm using to get around it. Sharing these best practices with, the women who have your back no matter what, makes you more resilient when you run into a situation that's untenable at your workplace. Because quite frankly, going to HR, that's a joke. Their HR is there to guard the company. It's there to protect the assets of the company. And so, a lot of people think, well, I'm going to run HR. Well, that doesn't help. All that does is put you under the radar of that person's a problem. So that's the other thing I would advise is understand the role of human resources is really not to defend the employee. I know that's what they say, but quite frankly, that's not what they do. I have never seen that happen except in instances of addiction. In instances of alcohol and drug abuse, HR is there to help the employee get back on track. But even with that, I've seen it, abused on occasion. But because of the laws, employers are obligated to help you. But you need to understand the role of HR is not to help you advance. That's what your supervisor and your boss does, and their boss. And the other thing is, if you think that going over your supervisor's head to their boss is going to make you happier, guess what? That's the kiss of death. They already know your boss is an idiot. They already know you're working for a difficult person. And so does HR. So you've got to figure out how to work around that so that you can advance your own goals and know that you will not be with that person forever.
I think it's important
So,
in that. So in that sense too, just to jump in, I had a friend when I was at Macy's when we were going through the executive training program, and I had gotten
right,
my job at Express, right, which was a big promotion and would have been more money. And I was trying to talk to my friend who we had been through the program together, and she was an
right.
assistant. I had already been promoted, and she was like, "Oh no, I can't leave Todd. He needs me." I'm like, "Todd is a buyer. You're an assistant. If Todd got an offer tomorrow to be a DMM, he's leaving you." But people attach to people and they don't understand they need to attach to a purpose or their self, right? Like make sure that you are promoting yourself and not feeling like you have to stay with that person because that's going to be your journey forever.
That is very true. That happened to me when I was at Bergdorf Goodman.
Hmm.
I felt like, oh, my DMM needs me, and I can't possibly leave to take this better opportunity to Ann Taylor because I'll be letting my DMM down because she doesn't know how to do this and she needs me for that. And it was, my father who said, "Are you kidding me? Everyone is expendable. And no matter how good or needy you think the situation calls for, you are just as expendable as your DMM. So why would you turn down an opportunity because you feel a sense of loyalty to her? She will not feel loyal to you if someone plucks her from that organization and says, "Hey, I have an opportunity for you and let's talk." Headhunters always are looking for talent. And so we have to give up this sense of loyalty because it really doesn't exist. You have to be loyal to yourself and keep your own counsel.
Now, so now I don't know anyone at this point who's still in luxury who looks like me. And that was an interesting journey, I'm sure. How did you do that? Because that's just not that those opportunities just haven't presented to us.
That's interesting. It was a woman who hired me at Bergdorf's that said to me, "You're not dressed for our luxury customer." I will never forget it. Her name was Patty. She said, "But there's something about your personality that I know you would fit in here." But she said, "I'm going to tell you right now, you have to change this outfit. And this is what I want you to wear when you meet with the buyers and the DMMs and blah, 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 blah. Because if we're going to bring you in as a buyer, you've got to look like XYZ. And we know that our pay will not grant you the types of clothing that you can afford." But she said, "Have you heard of Barney's warehouse sale?" I will never forget that. And so I thought, okay. And she said, "By the way, there are also sample sales, and I'm going to give you a couple of places where you can go and get some great deals." But she says, "You didn't hear it from me." What I learned from that was there will be people who pull you aside and you kind of think you got it going on and, you look the part. Looking the part for the next position is as important as what your resume says about you. So I went and spent ridiculous amount of money on a haircut at John Atchison. I will never forget
Oh
it.
yeah.
He was
He
the guru
used to do my
of
hair.
black
Yep.
hair in Manhattan. I said,
Yep. When I
okay,
lived
let me
in
go
the
spend
city, that was
my
my
entire
guy.
paycheck on getting a fabulous cut from John Atchison. When I came back for the second round of interviews, that's all they wanted to talk about. Oh my God, after they did all the conversation about, can you do this, that with the open to buy and all that, it was, oh, your haircut it's quite lovely and it's so directional. That was the word they were using at the time. It's so directional. And I realized these people don't care. They're not even looking at my resume.
Mhm.
They're looking at me and looking at my haircut. So that helped me to enter the luxury space because all this time I started out, you were at Macy's in the training program. Well, I was at Bloomingdale's in their training program. And
Mhm.
I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, getting the work done, delivering the efficiency results. When they're looking at, what are you wearing? How's your hair? Are you wearing the manicure that makes us feel that you fit in? Which at that time was a color called precious pink, which looked terrible
Oh.
on a black woman's hands. But that is what the divisional VP, the buyers, the GMM, they all had precious pink nail polish. So I just decided, well, I can't go with precious pink. I went with ballet slipper. It looked better on my black skin. And I gave
Yep.
up wearing red nail polish except for weekends. But Monday through Friday was ballet slipper. I couldn't do precious pink. These little details make a difference in the luxury sector because, they're constantly looking at us under the microscope. Now, as I got my increases, I could afford to go to John Atchison, but that took years. But one of these little things when you're interviewing for your next position or your promotion, or you got to meet with the GMM and it's a big meeting, sometimes it's worth it to invest just in small little things like that. Go to the sample sales and buy classic, timeless pieces that are fantastic. At the time, there was a designer called Kathy Hardwick, which did, crazy looking stuff. So I bought a bubble houndstooth check bubble skirt with a classic jacket that was a Kathy Hardwick suit that was out of this world. I got some Ferragamo tuxedo pumps on sale and wore my black stockings. And to them, that looked like a luxury statement. And me, I'm penny pinching to have this look. What I'm saying is, how you present yourself does matter. I mean, I've been wearing my silver hair for 10 years. Why? Because I'm too cheap to dye it. And I just decided this is what it is. But to people, this looks like a fashion statement now. And so sometimes you have to just decide you're going to go against the grain. So I stopped wearing my red nail polish, but I said, I got to wear a different neutral. I'm not going to wear precious pink. I'm a black woman and I'm not trying to wear pink nail polish. But what I would not change was my lipstick. I wore red lipstick the whole time because I knew it would make me stand out. But now that I'm older, I hardly ever wear red lipstick. I really wear lots of neutrals because for me, it's more fun to just wear it that way. And so these are small little things in terms of entering luxury. It's all about image. Then the next thing is white people want to say, oh, they're so articulate. Well, I hate to say it. That's so discriminatory, but they are constantly listening for your conversation to see if there's going to be a gaffe.
Mm-hmm.
And in the luxury space, it matters even more. And it's not fair, but how you express yourself becomes more important as you go up the ranks. That becomes as equally important as your gross margin bottom line figures, because they just want to make sure that, quote, you can represent on a level that might be a higher level or a different level than what you're normally accustomed to. So with the luxury space, it was, can she write up the ad and make it sell in Vogue or New York Times and work with our creative director, blah, blah, blah. All these things matter. And in terms of branding, I always had to dress differently to go to the market when I'm working with my luxury people. Because at the time I'm working with people like Etro, I'm working with, other designers. Donna Karan had just done her 7 Easy Pieces, and I'm working with them, even though that stuff was so poorly made, it was falling apart. But I'm meeting her, and at the time, D'Elio, who was her partner at the time, and the first thing they do is they look you up and down. They're looking at your shoes. They're looking at everything you're wearing. And it's funny because really, what does it matter? But it does. And so I always tried to dress the next level. But what I also learned was comfort. Those Ferragamo tuxedo pumps lasted me forever. And they became the most comfortable ballet flat I could ever wear. And so for me, it's better to own one pair and wear them into the ground, take them to the shoemaker. I had a great shoemaker. He did all the shoes for the luxury people. And at that time, there was a shoe store called I. Miller. That's actually where Andy Warhol used to do his illustrations before he became an artist. He worked at I. Miller. Well, that store was right on the corner. And I found out where the shoemaker was. And they felt sorry for me, so they didn't charge me the same price because they're like, she's broke. She's working at Bergdorf's. But my point is, these little things matter. And so your image, you're your own brand. How you present yourself helps you stay in the luxury space. A lot of these people who act like they know luxury, they don't know luxury. They've not gone through haute couture and gone to Paris and, met with the artisans and talked with Karl Lagerfeld and gone into the salon to see how things are done. Are you kidding me? But what they do know is museums. So if you can talk about art, they think that you're in the luxury space. Why? Because you can talk about art. And most of these trust fund girls were art history majors so that they can talk about this over dinner with the vendor who can afford to buy real art, but can at least have a dialogue about it. And so that's how you see the luxury space, because people talk about fashion now as much as they talk about art. And it's white people buying up all this African art now, African American art, and all of this is part and parcel to lifestyle. And lifestyle is about image and aspirational luxury as well as real luxury. So just being able to have these conversations, whether you're talking about a Koons, crazy looking sculpture, or you're talking about Mickalene Thomas, or you're talking about, Romare Bearden, all of this conversation elevates it to the luxury space, because then they feel that you understand them in terms of clientele as well as in terms of, the luxury space. It becomes symbiotic.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Awesome. So we have 7 minutes. Let me see. No questions, but we'll keep it. So if you, in the last 7 minutes of our conversation, Shawn, what is your bottom line? What do you want to leave these women who are watching us? What do you think is most important for them? I mean, you've given so much knowledge and we've shared it. And that's why I think people are just watching, like, what are we going to say next? So here's some, like, I've gotten calls recently from young women who, they're in a room, they know their business, they have it written down, they start talking, someone talks over them, and then that person gets, and it happens repeatedly, so then they lose their confidence. I've been working with some young people, I do the
Kamala now. Well, I do the Kamala. Excuse me, I'm speaking. There's a very polite way to do it, and you do it just like that, because you know what it does? It quiets the whole room just for that second. You say, excuse me, I'm speaking. Just the way she did it with Pence when he tried to overtalk her throughout the entire debate. That's one thing you can do. You say, excuse me, I'm speaking. Or what you do is you say, pardon, I'm not finished. And when I am, I'll let you know so you can make that point that you were just making. I think the most important advice I can give is to be empowered to exercise your own agency. You have to recognize and know your worth, no matter what anyone says or does. Because as I said at the beginning, Black women are silenced, and it's done intentionally, and they will always pretend that they didn't realize it, that they didn't know. Oh, I wasn't trying to overtalk or interrupt or dismiss what you're saying, but their actions belie the truth. And so you have to be empowered to say, excuse me, I'm speaking. And when I'm finished, feel free to make your point, because they expect us to be quiet and to continue to be silenced. And by you letting that person who's being rude know that you're not going to tolerate it, they will think twice about doing it again. And so I do it in meetings, because meetings is where they like to make you the sacrificial lamb and interrupt you, overtalk you, not call on you. And so, guess what? Let them see you and make yourself seen. Because what are you going to lose? You have nothing to lose, because they're already interrupting you. And by that, they're belittling your power. And so take the power back. And by doing it in such a nice way, you were telling them off. Excuse me, I am not finished speaking. And when I am, I'll let you make your point. But I was still in the finish, of my conversation. And so let me continue, blah, 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 because it shocks them. And quite frankly, people are just rude today. They just want to overtalk, because this is how we communicate in media. And so people think that, particularly men, they do it all the time. A white woman will say, oh, I didn't mean to. Oh, I'm sorry. When, that's BS too. But with men, you got to be even tougher. Excuse me. Sometimes I put up my hand. Excuse me. I wasn't finished my point. So, and I had to do this in education. I mean, and we don't have a bottom line. We are, helping to educate. And these white men come in, the deans and the VPs, and they just act as if, I'm going to be invisible because they got some cute little title and they got testosterone, and I'm not having it. So you can do the Kamala. Excuse me, I'm speaking. And that sets the tone. And it won't always work, but as you start to do it more often, you feel a sense of empowerment to let people know you're not going to talk over me, you're not going to disrespect me, and you're not going to allow my voice to be silenced. And that's a leadership lesson in how to make people respect you when they want to disrespect you all the time. I observe it with women leaders, and I see it so often that, a lot of women get used to it. Well, I don't get used to it. That's one of the things I adore about Kamala. She does not allow people to silence her, whether they're Black, white, or men or women. And Shirley Chisholm was the same way. Barbara Jordan was the same way. I mean, we can't allow ourselves to be silenced. And you can do it with dignity and respect. But, what we used to say is talk to the hand. But what I'm suggesting is that you say, excuse me, I'm speaking. And when I'm finished, I'll let you know.
Right. So I would say I'm going to keep that up there. Do not get used to being silenced.
No, we have a voice. And look, the worst that can happen is that what? Someone says to you, I don't think that was necessary. So you let it roll off your back because oftentimes what people think and their perception is not necessarily what's really going on. They want to justify their attitude and their actions because they want to be right, even when we know in our hearts that what they did was offensive. And so allow yourself to trust your gut. You know when something's off, you know when something's not right. And you also know when someone doesn't have your back. You trust that instinct and always rely on it. And rely on your sisters who are maybe not in the organization and others that you can trust to let you know and affirm your leadership and affirm your power and affirm the fact that you're not in this alone.
It's awesome. You're not in this alone. That's a
You're not
great
in this
place to
alone.
end this. You're not in this
You're not
alone.
in this alone. That's the whole purpose of sharing, because we all get our asses kicked. Let me tell you, up and down this industry. I mean, it happens. I don't care how cute you are, how powerful you think you are. And that's when we got to have the Black girl magic. We got to talk 11 o'clock at night, texting, talking, Zooming, whatever, so that we can get back up that next day and have our heads held high. Because guess what? Your crown was already bought and paid for by our ancestors. So hold your heads up high and keep it moving. I used to say to my daughter, they can kiss your Black ass, because you know what? They talked about Jesus. That's what my grandmother would say. Oh, they talked about Jesus. And I said, well, I need a little more help than that. She said, well, hold your head up high and know that if they crucify Jesus, they're going to crucify you. But she said, you got a brain, you got Black girl magic, and you are empowered to lead. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
That's awesome. I think everybody on this call needs to know you are enough. You have Black girl magic, brown girl magic, whatever girl magic you are as a woman of color, you have that magic. And look, sometimes in life you have to tell people to kiss your ass. Like that's a given. Right.
That's
and
right.
Because you need to know that you are all those things. You are enough, you are magic. And most of the time, the reason they are pushing back is because they know that your magic shines brighter than theirs. And so
that's right. That's right. Oftentimes they don't want that star to shine. They don't want you to be confident in yourself. And so they try to tear you down. And it's unacceptable. And you got to let them know, my dignity and my self-worth is not tied up in how you feel and what you say. And have the courage and the wherewithal to know, you know what? Step aside, because I'm walking through. I'm here, and there's no going back.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's a great place for us to end. And I appreciate you. We are over time, so I appreciate you allowing us going over. This has been amazing, amazing. And we have notes. Well, anyone who joined us late, if you go back, I've been keeping notes in the comments as well as posting the incredible nuggets that Shawn has shared on the video. So you'll be able to jot those down very easily. Shawn is available on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, she is always open to just sharing her wisdom. And that's why we have her back as often as we can, because I learn something every time I talk Shawn. And I want everyone to just stay safe, stay engaged, support a new sister. Just reach
support
out.
each other.
We have
Support,
that's right.
support
We have
is
to support each
important. Nobody gets anywhere by themselves. Even when they say that, just know it's a lie.
other. Right.
Because everybody,
That's
you
true.
can't run for president by yourself. And I'm telling
That's
you, there's not a CEO in America that got to that level by themselves. It's just impossible.
No.
And so know that you too
Yeah.
can rely on others to help move you forward.
And we need to do that for each other. And we need to create our own system of nepotism.
Absolutely.
And that's what Walk in Retail is about. And so stick with us. We're here to support you and to bring information to you that you might not otherwise know. And I just look forward to next month. Next month is we are on May 19th, and we are with Shawn Johnson from Tommy Hilfiger. So that's going to be a great conversation. Very popular brand. She's an EP. So that's exciting. And then just one more for June. You asked me for more supply chain professionals. And so for June, we're going to have Jackie Jenkins, who wrote a book on supply chain. She is a strategist. She's worked in fashion for her whole career. So she's going to be very interesting too. So we've got some great people. We just keep bringing these amazing women to you, and it's not going to stop. So thanks for joining. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. And we will see you again. Weekend.